here, it went on for at least, I would say, a minute.
Yeah.
Quite scary.
Yeah.
You're with BBC News and our breaking news out of Southeast Asia this hour, where there has been a major earthquake. It hit central Myanmar with strong tremors being felt in Thailand and southwest China. Now, the main quake hit at 0620 GMT, that's 12:50 local time, with a magnitude of 7.7. The epicenter was close to Myanmar's second city, Mandalay. 10 minutes later, an aftershock with a magnitude of 6.4 was recorded. Now, the full scale of the damage in Myanmar is still unclear. Details are coming in, but as you can see here, the quake was strong enough to buckle roads around the capital, Naypyidaw, and a major hospital in the capital has declared a mass casualty area. Some of the wounded are being treated outdoors. The military authorities say there is 6 areas are now under a state of emergency. Close to the epicenter, several spans of this major river bridge, which you can see on screen, have collapsed. This is near the epicenter, which is near the city of Mandalay. I want to take you to the live pictures from Bangkok now. This is where a high-rise building, which had been under construction, had collapsed, and you can see the sheer amount of debris and concrete that is there. We understand this was a 30-storey building, and the initial reports said that 43 people were missing. We are just getting a little bit more detail from the authorities. The Thai authorities say that, as I said, 43 construction workers are missing after the earthquake. It meant that this unfinished 30-storey building in the Thai capital collapsed. Now, we understand 50 people were inside the building near Chatuchak Park, which is hundreds of miles away from the epicenter in Myanmar. Just to give you a sense of the scale of this, the epicenter, which is in the city of Sagaing near Mandalay, is 1,000 kilometres from the Thai capital, Bangkok. So you can see how far away it was and the damage that has been done in Bangkok. The local authorities say that 7 people escaped. That's according to the National Institute for Emergency Medicine in a Facebook post that they've given this update. Local police say when they arrived to inspect the site, they heard people calling for help, saying, "Help me, help me." So you can see that the emergency workers, some of them are standing there looking at this wreckage. Of course, it is very difficult at this time to know exactly how to tackle something like this, because it would need specialist equipment to go in there, and there will be a fear that there is aftershocks there. We've already had one big aftershock that came about 10 minutes after that first earthquake, which was 7.7 magnitude in scale. And to give you a sense, that is a big earthquake. And the other reason why these tremors are being felt is the fact that this earthquake was shallow. It's only 10 kilometres down, which is why we are seeing that these tremors are being felt, not just in Thailand, where these pictures are, but also the tremors have been felt in China as well. Reports of people running out into the street in areas of China, and particularly we heard the eyewitness in Bangkok just saying what a shock this was, a dizzying level of the shaking that was going on. Now, this building that we've seen this devastation in Bangkok, we understand it was a 30-storey building, an unfinished building. It was going to be government offices. That's what was meant to be being built there. And the authorities saying in the last little while that there were 50 people inside this building at the time that the quake struck, and that 7 managed to escape, but 43 others remain trapped or missing, is the description that the emergency authorities are saying there. And the deputy police chief describing how when they arrived at the scene to inspect the site. They heard people calling for help, saying, "Help me." We know that the Thai authorities have declared a disaster area following the earthquake as soon as this happened, which, as we say, less than 3 hours ago, the initial quake struck. The Thai government held a meeting, and of course things like metro lines and public transport were stopped, and then a little while later they did declare this state of emergency across Bangkok. We're hearing that the Bangkok governor has been placed in charge of coordinating the disaster response. That information coming from City Hall, because this is what will be going on now in that area, is that the emergency services will now be working out how to cope with this, because there will be not only the scene of destruction that we can see at this building that collapsed, but as we were hearing, there was a lot of panic as people came out because they haven't witnessed an earthquake of this scale in a long time in Thailand. So people ran out of the buildings. We've seen pictures of the swaying that was going on inside buildings, and also quite a visual sign of how much the swaying was. There are some images of a swimming pool that is at the top of a skyscraper, and the water came over the side of the pool, down the side. So here are those pictures where you can see the water coming down that skyscraper and tumbling onto the ground below. That is being caused by the tremor of this earthquake. And as I was saying, this is 1,000 kilometres away from the epicenter, and you can see the pictures of people out on the streets, people on their phones trying to communicate with people, because a lot of the high-rise buildings, they would have immediately wanted to get out. We heard from our colleague at the BBC Vietnamese service that it is something that she had never witnessed living in the city, and there was that panic, and they've come out onto the streets. Inside the buildings, we've seen pictures of chandeliers shaking, and also the fact that you could hear the cracking of things falling off shelves as well. So this came at around 6:20 GMT, 12:50 local time. Now, BBC producer Lyndall Markwell gave us this update from Bangkok. She witnessed what happened. Let's have a listen to what she said.
Absolutely. I mean, it was a lot of confusion here. In my building, I was only on the first floor. It's a low-rise building. The room was swaying. I thought I was having a dizzy spell. When I came outside, the ground floor pool, the water was sloshing out of that. So we realised it wasn't to do with our building itself. We got out the front, and in my area of Ekamai, I mean, I can see kind of 6 high-rises just quite near me now, and we were seeing water pouring down, at least 2 of them at that point, from swimming pools up on the roofs, and you could see things still swaying. A little bit later, we noticed there's a couple of high-rises near us that are linked by a very sort of thin bridge, and we could see that that's been damaged and had tiles hanging off it. It looks like it's been cut through the middle. Obviously, a lot of confusion. Everybody is now outside all the buildings here in Bangkok. They've been sitting outside their buildings waiting to see whether or not they can go back inside. Some buildings are starting to let people back in, especially the more low-rise places around me. The roads are completely gridlocked. Can't really get anywhere at the moment. The transport system, we've got a metro system above ground and underground, that's been suspended. One of my colleagues said he was on one of the bridges of the transport system earlier and could feel it swaying. And he also heard glass shattering in one of the shopping malls next door to the metro system there. So a lot of confusion. We're not used to having earthquakes here in Bangkok. I've lived here 2 years and haven't experienced one. There's sometimes milder ones. Usually the epicenter is in Myanmar, but we haven't, one of my colleagues who's lived here decades says he cannot remember one this big in all that time.
And Lyndall, it's sounding as though there wasn't any kind of warning that this was coming.
No warning whatsoever. We were desperately sort of trying to find out if there'd been an earthquake by phoning other friends to say, did you feel that? We did start to hear a little bit later, about an hour afterwards, we were hearing that there might be another aftershock. which I didn't feel personally. The only aftershock I felt was just in those first sort of 10 minutes afterwards. We felt a little bit more of the ground moving. But yeah, we hadn't had any warning about that.
So that was Lyndall talking to my colleague Lauren a little earlier, just giving you a sense of what happened in the Thai capital, Bangkok. Let me take you back to those live pictures. Now, this is the scene of the building that was under construction, a 30-storey building that has collapsed. And the latest information coming from the authorities is that at least 43 people are missing after this skyscraper that was under construction collapsed. It was intended to be a government office. We know that 7 people, according to the National Institute for Emergency Medicine in Bangkok, did manage to escape, but we know that at least 43 people are missing after the collapse there of that building in Bangkok. You can see that the emergency services are there. They are trying to work out what to do. A disaster area declared in the city. The mayor is going to coordinate the rescue efforts and the operation to try and get into that destroyed building. As we have been reporting 43 people missing after that skyscraper collapse. As we've been saying, this is the Thai capital, Bangkok. This is 1,000 kilometres away from the epicentre of the earthquake, was in Myanmar. And we are going to show you some pictures that we're getting in. A bridge has collapsed, the Ava Bridge, where several spans of the bridge have come down into the water. These are the pictures there. We should say it's not clear if anyone is hurt. Another bridge is still standing. Now, the reason it is a lot harder to get the pictures out of Myanmar is that you'll know that the country's been ruled by the military since a coup in 2021, making access to information difficult. The state also controls almost local radio, television, and the internet is restricted. We've also know that the BBC has been trying to get through to the aid agencies there, and communication lines appear to be down. But we can see near Mandalay, this is the Ava Bridge, which has collapsed into the water. Let me show you some other pictures as well from Myanmar. These are, again, near Mandalay shortly after the quake. We know that there have been cracks to the floors and the walls of the buildings. But from those images, it does seem like the buildings are standing, although there is that damage now. Mandalay is about 16 kilometres from the actual epicentre, which is a city called Sagaing. We are hearing reports that there were tense scenes at Mandalay Airport. There's some unverified video that was apparently taken after, showing people screaming and crouched on the ground of the tarmac with a jetliner in the background saying, "Sit down, don't run." Now, as I said, there is a lot of video that is coming in. Our team at BBC Verify are working to coordinate and check those pictures, because, of course, whenever there is an incident like this, you have to be sure about the pictures that they've come from the right area that are posted on the internet. So our team from BBC Verify doing that. So the pictures that we are showing you, we do know they have come from those particular areas. Let me take you back to the live pictures again in Bangkok, where there is a state of emergency disaster that has been declared after this building collapsed. Now, this was a building that was being constructed, a 30-storey building that has come down. We know that 43 people are missing. We just had some word from the Red Cross, who, of course, will be one of the organisations that will be mobilised after an earthquake. Now, they say initial reports suggest significant damage in the Myanmar earthquake. Sending teams, they are responding, but they say they are facing challenges due to downed power lines in the affected region. So they have got teams heading there, but they are having problems getting there because of the downed power in the affected regions. But they are saying that initial reports do say that there is significant damage in the earthquake that has hit Myanmar. It's a 7.7 magnitude quake. So just if you are joining us on BBC News and understanding that this is a large earthquake. 7.7 is big, and a sense of the scale of that, as we've been reporting, the epicenter was in Myanmar, but the tremors being felt in China, as well as the images we are seeing out of Bangkok of this building that has collapsed. Let's listen to some people in Thailand about what they witnessed when the quake struck.
I was checking a message on my mobile phone. I was in my lazy boy, and all of a sudden it moved back and forth, and then it toppled over, and I hit my head on the table, but it didn't leave a mark, and I didn't break the glass table either. This is not the first time that the building has felt an earthquake. In 2004, when the tsunami and the earthquake happened in Sumatra, the building shaked immensely for almost 30 minutes, and then it had cracks in the walls, but never like this before.
I was waiting for the bill, and then suddenly I started feeling that the earth is shaking. You know, my first thought is that maybe somebody is not feeling it, just me, something is wrong with me, but everybody was looking around, and right away we were all going outside because you could feel it's going to last for a while. I have experienced earthquakes twice before in Myanmar, but that was only like 1 second of one big bang, and here it went on for at least, I'd say, a minute. Quite scary.
So that some of the people in Thailand who witnessed the earthquake, and as I said, they are 1,000 kilometres away from the epicenter in Myanmar. We're just hearing from the military, who of course control Myanmar since that coup. They have declared a state of emergency after the strong earthquake, that coming from a statement that's been posted by the military on Telegram. So a state of emergency being declared in Myanmar. Also, we have that state of disaster and emergency in the Thai capital, Bangkok. Let's speak to Panisha Moshe, who is a reporter for BBC Thai. She is now just outside Bangkok. Panisha, can you just describe what you felt when the earthquake struck?
Yes, hi. So when the earthquake happened, I was actually at home and was working, but then I start feeling like everybody else. It starts to feel like dizzy. So I thought it was me, but then I heard the neighbor shouting and everybody just like get outside of the house. So I was as well. And at that point, I'm aware that, oh, there was some earthquake. But at that point, I wasn't still aware that it's this big of an earthquake. So everybody was in a panic mode. And then I pick up the phone from editors, and then I go straight, because at that point, there were a lot of report about the skyscraper in Thailand near Jatujak area you mentioned that collapsed. We seen circular of that video that is very horrific scene. So I really rushed to the scene, and I'm actually just like about 200 meters away from the site of the skyscraper that's collapsed.
We can see the live pictures from the scene of where the skyscraper came down. Just describe what is going on in that area at the moment, Panisha.
Yeah, so actually, before joining this live, I talked to two of the survivor of the worker who worked, one on the first floor of the scene of the skyscraper building scene, and another person on the 5th floor. So at the moment, we are now on the outskirts of the scene, and a lot of workers still waiting. There's a lot of rescue people, a lot of police, or a lot of the manager team to try to check on the number and check who is missing, which is really hard to identify, because even though this project is a joint venture between two companies, but as there's also a lot of subcontractor, so they're trying to verify who has been missing. So that's still in that period. So people and workers are still waiting outside, just on the road, just similar to what happened inside the city centers, where people coming out of the big building. We are now sitting on just the road and waiting to see what will be happening next. And on the two workers that I have talked with, one of them is 18 years old. He just came back from home and worked at the scene. And he said that at the time, he's seen from the upstairs, because that 30-story building, there's crane, like big equipment at the top of the building. So he feel the he feel that his ground is shaking. So he looked up and he saw that the crane is kind of shaking. And at that moment, he said it was a split moment of like 1 minute that it's just like smoke everywhere and he couldn't see anything. So he just run for his life. So that's one guy for the 18 years old. Another person, he 30, he part of one of this group. He working on the 5th floor. And he said as well that the moment he felt the shake, he said that he could feel, and he was fearing for his life, he could feel that it's going to collapse. And both of them said that they thought they would not survive. But fortunately, they just ran as much as they can, as fast as they can, and got out and just like sit and flop on the floor on the street just next to the building.
We are seeing the dramatic pictures of what you've just been describing, that 30-storey skyscraper that was under construction coming down, huge plumes of smoke. And then, as you described, those workers nearby, as you said, running for their lives away from that building coming down. Really dramatic pictures that we are seeing that were posted on social media of the exact moment that the 30-storey building came down. And as we have said, at least 43 people are missing after this collapse. Panisha, just describe, you said you've never witnessed anything like this in terms of the strength. How often would you feel a tremor in Bangkok?
I've been born and raised in Thailand for like about 30 years. Never once in my life that I feel the shake. And my house is on the ground floor. So sometimes some Bangkok people on the higher floor, on the skyscraper, they can feel a little bit things here and there when things happen. But on the ground floor and at this level, never once in my life that I have seen it. And I've talked to workers, I've talked to witnesses along the way of coming to report this live. Nobody have seen it happen. Nobody have seen it happen at this level. The level that you stay on the ground, you feel the shakiness, you feel dizzy just standing on the ground. This is unprecedented even in Thailand, in Bangkok in particular.
And do you know at the moment, we obviously can see the devastation that's been caused to this building that was under construction. Do we have any sense yet of what the scale of the damage is elsewhere in the city?
So at the moment, we see this one big one that is have been reported to be collapsed. We haven't seen another report of another buildings being collapsed. We have seen what you mentioned, that on the big skyscraper we seen like the infinity pool, the water is coming out. There are others construction area that people are fearing and like shooting video online and posting it and fear for their life whether or not that construction is going to collapse or not. But at the moment we have not seen any report. And as you already mentioned, that the Bangkok governor and also the prime minister, everybody has tried to pull all the string and try to just make sure that everybody stays safe. And there also a warning that within this time frame still like another 2 hours that there's still awaiting aftershock. So a lot of people still staying outside of the big building. So we should hope that everybody kind of stays safe at this moment. But no additional report apart from this. Actually, 2 billion. The whole project is 2 billion Thai baht, which is equivalent of over 60 million USD. That's collapsed.
And you mentioned that there is the fear, of course, of aftershocks. And you've been talking to people as you got there. What have they been saying to you? And as you said, a lot of them staying out of their buildings at the moment. Has there been any official advice as to what to do?
Yes. So one of the officials as well is that the government have asked all the school to send and return the kids home. And some building, they do let people get inside. But another buildings, quite a few other buildings still have people awaiting outside to see what to come next. And everybody is still waiting for the announcement or the advice from the government or from the authority of what they should be doing next. But at the moment, we still seen Central Bangkok full of people just sitting on street, couldn't dare to get back onto the building.
Yes, because I assume people are going to, and the authorities are going to need to check the buildings to make sure they are safe.
Yes.
And just for people who are just joining us, just describe again those initial moments, because I assume that there wasn't any warning at all.
Yes. So the thing happened at around noon. So people were just actually doing their lunch break. Somebody already inside the building, somebody going outside, and suddenly you just feel the shake. It just come out of nowhere. Since the morning until noon or 1 p.m., there has been no warning, no SMS warning, sent no text sent to your phone, or even no warning on Facebook page of the authorities, no nothing. So people weren't aware that there's this big magnitude of earthquake happened in Myanmar that could potentially affect Bangkok or Thailand. So people were just doing their life, they're running their errand, they're doing their business as usual, and suddenly you feel the shake. If you were to scan on the ground, in my case, I was standing on the ground. I literally have to just like sit down because I couldn't understand. I couldn't process it. It feel dissonant. It feel like everything and the grounds on your feet is shaking. So this is on the ground floor. So people who are actually living on the upper floor, it has been reported that the condominium, the wall is cracked. You could see the mirror is cracking. So everybody is trying to run down on the floor, and this has happened in the center. This is not something that Thai people or Bangkok people or people who live in Bangkok experienced before. As we already mentioned, that this is so unprecedented. We never seen something like this happen in Bangkok or in Thailand in particular before. So it's very severe. On top of that, you've seen the circulation of footage and images of the big 30-story building collapse within just like 1 to 2 minutes.
OK, Panisha, for the moment, thank you very much for your eyewitness report. We really appreciate it. I know you're very close to the scene of that building collapse, so I'm going to let you go to get more information about what's going on at the scene. I can take you back to the live pictures from near where that building has collapsed. You can see in the top left-hand side of your screen, that is where the rubble of the building is. Now, we know that there are at least 43 people who are missing at the moment after that collapse, and I want to show you some pictures and a warning. They may be distressing to you of the moment of the collapse. So this is that 30-story building that was under collapse, and you can see the huge plume of smoke that is there as it comes down. This is a closer one. So there, the moment that comes down and those people around it running, and Panisha said she'd spoken to one 18-year-old who was near the scene who described running for their lives. And you can see those pictures, just how it was so quick to come down, and you can see the smoke that appears, and then those people running as quickly as they possibly can to get away from that area. Now, we do understand that there were 50 people in the building at the time, and 7 of them managed to get out. I want to take you back to the live pictures that are in Bangkok, where the emergency services are there. You can see that stretchers are being brought in by the officials there. So there is obviously a huge emergency operation going on, particularly around this building that has collapsed in Bangkok. A state of emergency has been declared there. The governor is in charge of the operation to help people. You can see cars on the roads nearby to where that building has come down. The building was intended to be government offices. So those are the live images as that operation goes on in Bangkok. Now, I should again remind you, if you are just joining, this earthquake wasn't in Thailand itself. The epicenter was in neighbouring Myanmar, which is about 1,000 kilometres from the Thai capital. It was near the Myanmar city of Mandalay, and it was 7.7 in magnitude. Let's get some more detail on the size of that earthquake. Dr. Brian Bapty is a seismologist at the British Geological Survey. Thank you very much for joining us on BBC News. We've seen these dramatic pictures out of Bangkok. Just for our audience around the world, explain how big a 7.7 magnitude quake is.
So this is a very large earthquake. It's capable of causing extreme damage close to the epicenter, and it's likely to have been felt further away. The city of Mandalay, which is the second largest city in Myanmar and has a population of over 1 million, was only about 17 kilometers away from the epicenter. So it seems likely that there'll be significant damage and fatalities there.
And just explain, we also heard that it was what's known as a shallow earthquake. Explain what that is and the significance of that.
So earthquakes occur at a range of depths throughout the Earth's crust and deeper. But in this particular region of the sort of Burmese arc, if you like, earthquakes are generally quite shallow. We think that this earthquake occurred on a kind of major fault system that marks the plate boundary between the Indian plate and the Eurasian or the Sunda plates. And earthquakes there are typically at depths of less than 20 kilometers.
So you mentioned the plates. Just explain how many are in that area and the basics of how an earthquake would happen with those plates.
So the outer shell of the Earth is made up of all these different segments, and those segments are moving around. Now they're moving pretty slowly, maybe a few centimeters a year, but as they collide with and move past each other, that generates incredible forces. And over time, those forces build up in the form of strain, and eventually some of that strain needs to be accommodated, either in the form of deformation or in the form of slip on earthquake faults. And when the rocks on either side of those faults slide past each other, and in a magnitude 7.7, we'd expect the kind of rupture to move several meters, that releases huge amounts of energy, and that causes the shaking that people feel at the surface.
And we had the initial earthquake, but then a second one of 6.4 slightly after. Is that classed as an aftershock, or is it a separate earthquake?
No, that would be classed as an aftershock. Large earthquakes, and in fact, most earthquakes are followed by aftershocks. Those aftershocks occur because of the kind of change in stress in the Earth's crust. So some of that stress is accommodated in the form of these additional earthquakes, as stress is kind of transferred onto different parts of the fault systems.
And I assume there is now a concern that there will be further aftershocks. How likely would that be?
I think that aftershocks are almost certain. For magnitude 7.7, the rule of thumb is that the largest aftershocks are likely to be around about magnitude 6.7. So that 6.4 that happened earlier this morning, that's probably close to being the kind of largest magnitude of aftershock we would expect. The aftershocks typically decay quite quickly with time after the main shock, so the number will decrease rapidly after a few days or weeks. But large earthquakes can still occur, and those could still be a concern and could still cause damage, especially to buildings that are already badly damaged.
And just give us a sense of how prone Myanmar itself is to earthquakes. How many have there been in the past, and have they been as big as this one?
Yeah, so this is an area where the earthquake hazard is high, and many large earthquakes have occurred in the region. In the last 100 years or so, there have been 14 earthquakes with a magnitude of 6 or above within 200 kilometers of the epicenter of today's earthquake. The largest of those had a magnitude of 7.6, so similar to today's earthquake, but it occurred in 1946, a little bit further north in the Saigon region. There was also a magnitude 6.8 in 1956 that was quite close to Mandalay. That did cause quite significant damage, but fortunately the number of casualties, or the number of reported casualties anyway, was quite small.
And this is always the situation when there's an earthquake. We get the initial report from the US Geological Survey, and I know that you in the UK would have monitoring as well. It is always a bit later once we get to see the pictures and the authorities get there on the scale of an earthquake.
I think the impact of an earthquake always unfolds with time as more information becomes available. At the moment, we expect it to be devastating. You know, there is likely to be very significant damage, and the fact that there's a kind of large exposed population living in vulnerable buildings close to where the shaking was strongest probably means there will be large numbers of fatalities.
And were you surprised by the fact that it has been felt so strongly 1,000 kilometres away in the Thai capital?
I'm not surprised that it's felt. I think that you might expect that, but I am a bit surprised that it's caused the collapse of the building that's been seen in those media clips.
Yes, because modern buildings are some of them. We know that Thailand itself isn't particularly earthquake prone, but there are, when buildings are constructed, people do think about things like that.
I would expect any large tower block or any large building, even in areas that maybe aren't so prone to earthquakes, to have been designed with earthquakes in mind. It seems that this building was actually under construction, so I don't know what the exact situation was. Similarly, I don't know exactly what the planning regulations are in Thailand.
Are you interested in the fact that it was felt very strongly in Thailand, but we're getting less reports from Bangladesh, which is the other side?
Yeah, that's possible because the earthquake occurred on this kind of major fault system that I mentioned, and it runs north-south. So it's possible that the shaking was somewhat larger to the south than to the kind of west of the epicenter. So that could be what's called a radiation effect.
Dr. Brian Bapty from the British Geological Survey, really appreciate you putting into perspective just how big this earthquake is. Thank you very much for your time here on BBC News.
Thank you, you're welcome.
So getting a sense there of just how big this earthquake is, 7.7 magnitude. My colleague Julia McFarlane is monitoring events. We've heard the Red Cross saying that there is initial reports of significant damage in Myanmar, and that would tie in with what Dr. Bapty was saying about the strength of this in that area of Mandalay.
Right. We've also heard some updates from the Myanmar junta, the ruling military leadership, who have now appealed for international aid. Now, it's very interesting because since that military coup that overthrew the democratically elected government in 2021, Myanmar has been largely cut off from Southeast Asia. It's heavily sanctioned. It's been boycotted by ASEAN, which is the regional Southeast Asian League of Nations. Interestingly, General Min Aung Hlaing, who's the military ruler of Myanmar, he was due to visit Bangkok next week. It's rare for him to travel outside his mainly two main allies left, which are Russia and China, but he's hoping to hold elections soon, and he's been trying to quell the civilian unrest, those youth-led protests that have been occurring in Myanmar since the democratically elected government were overthrown back in 2021. And so how he manages to carry out any kind of rescue operation, how he leads his country through this crisis, this will be very, very important for him.
Yeah, we should say we're seeing pictures from Bangkok because, of course, it is a lot harder to get live images out of Myanmar because of you talking about how the military control everything. They control the radio, they control the television. Also, we know that the internet has been down a bit. Of course, BBC team's been trying to make contact with people we know inside Myanmar, but that has been hard. These images coming from around the capital, which is Naypyidaw, which is around 1,000 kilometres north of the capital. And we can see that there has been some damage there. And one of the hospitals there talking about how they are describing it as a mass casualty area.
We will start to see more pictures coming in from Myanmar. There are a lot of civilian netizens who access the internet via VPN. This is a colonial era bridge that was built by the British nearly 100 years ago, and that collapsed earlier this morning. We've had reports that several buildings in Mandalay, Naypyidaw and other areas collapsed shortly after that earthquake took place. There has been a lot of fast development and bad urban planning in Myanmar's cities, which means that because of this, the crumbling infrastructure and the breakneck speed of them building means that there is a lot of fear that the buildings will not have fared well after this. There have been earthquakes in Myanmar recently, and they occur fairly often. It's much closer to those tectonic plate boundaries that we heard from that seismologist who was talking to us earlier. Far fewer earthquakes tend to happen in Thailand, which tends to see more natural disasters. It's more prone to flooding and monsoons and typhoons. And as our BBC Thai colleague was telling us earlier, there was a lot of panic in Bangkok because people in Thailand are just not quite so used to dealing with these kinds of earthquakes on a regular basis.
Yeah, and I think as she was describing to us, it was the fact that those images were on social media of the building that we can see collapsed here that suddenly spread, and you can imagine you feel the quake in your own building. You're trying to get out, but then you look on social media and you see this 30-story skyscraper that was being built, this happening to it, where it completely crumples in a matter of seconds, and those people are, as one of them described, running for their lives. You can imagine how panicked people would have been felt. We should say that there were 50 people in this building, and the authorities saying 7 of them did manage to get out, but at least 43 people are still missing after the collapse of this skyscraper in the centre of the Thai capital, Bangkok. And we know, Julia, there is now a state of emergency has been declared there, and the authorities are assessing what to do.
Right, I mean, there's going to be a huge cleanup operation, and those extraordinary pictures of that building collapsed. It was under construction. That might perhaps account for its vulnerability. But we are seeing a lot of footage coming in from Thailand of people experiencing quakes. We've got pictures of roads buckling. The emergency services, we've been watching them slowly gather outside the wreckage of that building. We've started to see emergency service and rescue workers with ambulances and stretchers being wheeled on to the scene, and increasing numbers of heavy machinery and diggers, because of course this is a very complex operation they now have to undertake, and they've got just a few hours left of daylight, which is going to severely hamper their rescue workers. The fact that power lines have been affected, the fact that the internet is also going to be affected, just because of the sheer number of people in Thailand who will be panicking. They will be calling their family, they'll be trying to coordinate, and all of this is going to make rescue efforts much harder before night falls and things start to get much more serious.
And of course that will also apply in Myanmar, which is where the epicentre of the quake was. We've managed to talk to some people. So Luin is in Yangon, which is Myanmar's largest city. He described feeling the earthquake for, and I quote, a long time. However, he did say there didn't appear to be widespread damage in the downtown area of the former capital, but he did, as we've been reporting, add that residents are worried about the potential for another bigger earthquake in the coming days, or indeed those aftershocks. And you mentioned that nightfall will come. That is also when the temperatures will drop down as well. And if people aren't inside their buildings, we see this often in the whenever there is an earthquake, that people stay outside. But then, of course, when it is night, they have the issue of staying warm when they don't want to get back into their building.
Right, and I mean, people in Bangkok, around the capital, around the building perimeter, the fear of aftershocks and the fear of going back into that building will absolutely be playing on their minds. But people will be wanting to know if their homes are safe, where they should be going. The government right now is going to be prioritising triage and trying to sort out which areas need power diverted, whether it's rescue workers, also police to keep civilians safe amid all of this chaos. It's a huge task, it's a huge operation, and we're starting to see international offers for help. Prime Minister Modi has said that he is offering assistance to Myanmar, responding to the Myanmar military leadership appeal for aid. We've had the Red Cross announcing that they will be mobilised and that they will be in force soon. But I mean, this is the kind of thing that requires a lot of international assistance.
Yeah, and as we said, it is the military military that are controlling the situation in Mandalay. They've declared emergencies in 6 areas, and I know that military chiefs are on the way. Julia, for the moment, thank you very much. Julia will continue to monitor events. If you are just joining us on BBC News, a reminder of our breaking news. There has been a strong 7.7 magnitude earthquake. It has hit central Myanmar, the epicentre near the city of Mandalay in a city called Sagaing. It is an area about 100 kilometres north of the capital, Naypyidaw. The pictures that we are seeing live are from Bangkok, because the quake was felt in the Thai capital, Bangkok, that 1,000 kilometres away from the epicentre, and there is a building that was under construction, a 30-storey building that has come down in the Thai capital. These are the live images from there, where you can see that the wreckage is there and emergency teams trying to work out what to do, some going into that area. We understand that there are 43 people who are still missing. 7 people did manage to get out of that building when it collapsed. Now, Butu is a BBC journalist who lives in Bangkok, and she explained to my colleague Lauren her account of the moment that she felt the earthquake.
Hello, I'm in Bangkok, and I was cooking when the initial earthquake hit my buildings, and I thought it was just I was having a vertigo. I was having a dizzy, because it has been a decade. I believe that Bangkok hasn't had experienced any earthquake like that. So I was literally like ignored in the first place, and then when the second earthquake hit, and it hit very hard, and I felt like I was shaking, and I can see all the stuff on the table was kind of like moving, and I was like, oh my gosh, and I was literally hearing my neighbors yelling, and I opened the doors and I saw people like running, and I joined with them. So we poured out on the streets, literally with the barefoot, and then we saw, some of the walls of the apartment was cracking, and we was very panicked. So we was calling our, friends to check if they're okay, and we saw, photos and videos on the internet when we checked if there was an earthquake. There's a lot of buildings that we know. For example, the Chatuchak Market, it is a very famous tourism attractions. There was a building there, got collapsed, and when we saw that, we were literally shocked, and we felt like, oh my gosh, why it's happened? And then we really prayed for people in Mandalay, because it's just a little hit in Bangkok, and we experienced kind of like terrific experience like that. I cannot imagine what it would be in the epicenter.
And you actually, while we've been talking to you, we've heard from the first reaction from the military leadership in Myanmar, saying that it's declared a state of emergency in 6 regions. So that gives a sense of the scale of the issue in Myanmar, whilst we also have more pictures, as Butu was saying, from Bangkok, and a bit more information coming in from there. And tell us a little bit about the reaction now from the authorities. So state of emergency in Bangkok. Tell us a little bit about how they will implement that and what it will mean in practice.
The government is now, monitoring the earthquake and the aftershocks of it, and some ministry already deploy people to monitor, some constructions, and the buildings. We are hearing that about 43 people missing in the construction site, and they are hoping to rescue people, and we hope that there will be not any people die from this earthquake, because it's really shocking, and people didn't have any preparation for that as well. The SkyTrain system stopped, people shaking. It's all images and videos. It's really terrifying for people that we are not prepared to this for happen. Yeah.
And so you mentioned the kind of the element of fear there. Are people generally staying out of the buildings now? Is that what they're doing?
Yes. So after the earthquake happened, we all stay out, and we have to stay there 30 minutes because you can imagine that apartments and buildings have cracks on the wall, so it's not really safe. Looks very safe to be back to the office or the buildings or your rooms, and especially because it hasn't happened for decades. So it literally the buildings in Bangkok are not engineered for the large earthquakes like this. So the structural damage could be very significant.
I just want to bring you a line of breaking news on this story. The AFP news agency now quoting the Deputy Prime Minister of Thailand saying that at least 3 people are now confirmed to have died in the building collapse that you heard being described by Butu, our colleague from BBC Thai. And these are the live pictures from the scene of the collapse of this 30-storey building that was under construction in the Thai capital, Bangkok. The Deputy Prime Minister, according to the AFP news agency, saying that at least 3 people have been confirmed to be killed in this building collapse. We knew from the authorities that 7 people had managed to get out and that at the time 43 were still missing. But in the last couple of moments, the Thai Deputy Prime Minister, according to the AFP news agency, saying 3 have died. The scene in Bangkok, but the actual epicenter was in Myanmar and very near to Mandalay. And we've just got some pictures in from the airport in Mandalay. And I just want to listen to the sound on these pictures that we're now going to play you. So there you can see people crouched on the ground at Mandalay Airport. You can see one of the jets in the background, people down. We know that voices in this video were heard to be saying, "Sit down, don't run," and that people were screaming. But obviously, this very close to the epicenter in Myanmar, Mandalay, about 18 kilometers from the city of Sagaing, which is where the epicenter was. But those pictures just into us from Mandalay Airport. There are a lot of developments on this, and you can see the QR code on the right-hand side of your screen. If you scan that QR code, it will take you to our live page where we have our team working to get the latest information from Myanmar and Thailand on this earthquake that we understand now has led to 3 people dying in that collapsed building in Bangkok, in the Thai capital, the epicenter being 1,000 kilometers away in Myanmar. As I say, if you take our live page, it's got all of the latest details. We are going to come back to the earthquake very shortly, but there is another big story that I just want to update you on, and that is from Greenland, because the US Vice President J.D. Vance is travelling to Greenland today, where he'll receive a briefing on Arctic security issues. You'll know that President Trump has repeated his claims that he wants the US to control Greenland for national security reasons. Russia's President Vladimir Putin says he thinks Mr. Trump is being serious. Well, my colleague, our chief presenter, Mariam Mashiri, has flown to Greenland and can join us now from the capital, Nuuk. Mariam, it looks quite cold there. When are we expecting J.D. Vance to arrive, and what has been the reaction to his trip there?
It is cold, Nikki. It's about minus 13 degrees Celsius, or it feels like minus 13 degrees Celsius. And the temperature is not the only frosty thing about Greenland this morning. There has been a lot of controversy and a lot of attention on this visit by J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, and his wife, Usha Vance. Now, remember, when she first announced this visit, she wanted to come here for a bit of fun, a cultural tour, some dog sledding, things like that. Nothing too serious, or so she thought. There was a lot of pushback, Nikki, against that visit. People here not happy about the Trump administration, which has made it very clear that it wants, one way or another, to annex this island, to annex Greenland, to make Greenland part of the United States of America. Well, that pressure then led to the Vice President announcing that he was going to join his wife on this trip, but it was going to be a much scaled back affair. The couple are arriving later on this afternoon local time, and they'll be leaving just a few hours later. They'll be accompanied by the National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz, and also the US Energy Secretary, as well as another senator. So that's scaling back, that backtracking by the Americans in terms of the way in which they wanted this visit to go has been taken by some here who are opposed to it as a bit of a victory. Earlier, I spoke to Danish author and journalist Martin Breum about this. He told me people here are glad the couple won't be coming to the capital Nuuk today.
That is a relief because there is no functioning government in Nuuk at the moment. The Americans were not invited, but there were already military planes landing here with bulletproof cars. The center of town was teeming with police and American diplomats, and the tension, the stress that causes in such a small town as Nuuk with less than 20,000 people is hard for, I think, the rest of the world to understand. So there is a sense of relief amongst the people I've talked to that they're not coming to Nuuk.
So, Nikki, where the couple are going to be headed is the US Space Base, which is based in the northwest of the island. They won't be having anything to do with the capital. And I have to say, people here are angry. I spoke to a number of them both yesterday and earlier on this morning, and I've had people saying to me, you know, quite frankly, Greenland is not for sale. They've said they feel very uneasy about the political agenda behind this visit. So you might be asking, why is Greenland such an interest for the United States of America? Well, to give you a bit of context, it's the world's largest island. It's absolutely beautiful here. It's an island full of icy fjords, deep ravines and wonderful views, but it's not the nature or the beautiful views that the US is interested in. This island is an absolute wealth of natural resource. It has untapped oil reserves, untapped mineral reserves, and that is one of the reasons analysts say the US is so interested. Also, it's a little bit about security. This, of course, is the Arctic. The Arctic is very much the epicenter now of focus for countries like China and Russia, who want to get a foothold in this geopolitically important area. Now, interestingly, in the last day or so, President Putin has said that Greenland has nothing to do with Russia. He said that the Greenland, in his words, is a matter between two countries and has nothing to do with us. Perhaps, Nikki, that's President Putin giving a subliminal message to President Trump about how he would like Mr. Trump to behave towards Mr. Putin when it comes to Ukraine. So under the shadow of this visit by J.D. Vance and his wife, later on today, the Democrats, the Greenland Democrats, after the election 2 weeks ago, are going to be announcing their new coalition government. And I think it's pretty safe to say that what Greenlanders really want to focus on is themselves and their future. They want to move closer towards independence from Denmark. Remember, Denmark has pretty much controlled this territory for the last 300 years. The Danish kroner is the national currency. Danish products are found through the supermarkets. What Greenlanders really want is to move a little bit closer towards becoming an independent country rather than being under the shadow of the USA.
And Mariam, I'm interested, because you know me, I like my food. What's the food like? What have you had to eat there?
The food here is delicious. It has to be said. There's a bit of a Danish or Scandi twist to the food. Last night, I'm going to be honest, I'm sorry to all the vegans and vegetarians out there, including my husband. I had a steak béarnaise, and wonderful producer Caroline Brockelbank had a seafood curry. It's gorgeous here. And I have to say, Nikki, if you want a little bit of a factoid, which I know also you love, 95% of the exports from Greenland are actually fish and fisheries. That's one of the big ways in which this country makes its money. Tourism is also becoming a bigger and bigger deal here. And I have to say, I'm not surprised. It's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to. It's covered in a blanket of snow in the winter. It's freezing cold, but the icebergs, the ice caps, the gorgeous deep fjords, it's really something of a wonder.
Mariam, I am a little bit jealous, if I was honest. Thank you very much. That's Mariam Mashiri, our chief presenter, live in Nuuk, covering the US Vice President J.D. Vance visit to Greenland later.